Being underestimated for many years can feel very strange. At first, it hurts your feelings because people don't believe in you. They laugh at your ideas and treat you like you are not important. But after a long time, something changes. It stops feeling like a personal insult. It almost becomes normal, like something that always happens in your life. For me, it has become a kind of family tradition, especially during holidays. That was exactly what I was thinking as I walked slowly up the long gravel driveway to my aunt's farmhouse in upstate Vermont. Every year, our family gathered here to celebrate Thanksgiving. The house looked just like it always did, big, old, and surrounded by tall trees. The air was cold, and the smell of wood smoke was coming from the chimney. My name is Amabel Vera, but my family has always called me Ellie. To them, I am just the strange and creative one in the family. They think I am the person who never really became successful like the other Veras. I am 39 years old now. The wool coat I was wearing was specially made for me in Milan. It was expensive and beautifully made, but it did not look fancy. It was gray, simple, and very plain. I chose it carefully because I didn't want anyone to notice it too much. I wanted to look ordinary today. I didn't want to surprise anyone yet. As I walked toward the porch, I saw my cousin Cale leaning against the wooden railing. He looked exactly the same as he always did, with a smug smile on his face. "Well, look who still remembers where we live," Cale said loudly. His voice was full of sarcasm. "Ellie the Etsy queen," he added with a smirk. A few other family members laughed behind him. I simply smiled politely and kept walking. I had learned a long time ago not to argue with them. In my mind, I was thinking about the important business reports waiting for me back in the city. My company had a busy quarter ahead. None of the people standing on this porch had any idea what kind of news today was going to bring. When I walked inside the house, everything felt exactly the same as it did every year. My Aunt Octavia was already giving people her opinions about everything, just like she always did. She criticized people's clothes, their jobs, their hair, anything she could notice. My brother Theron was talking loudly about his finance job and how successful he was. Cale and his sister Serena were proudly talking about the family company, Vera Timberland. Vera Timberland was a lumber business that had been owned by the Vera family for generations. Cale and Serena acted as if working there made them very important. Aunt Octavia looked at my coat and wrinkled her nose. "Ellie, really?" she said. "That coat looks like something from a second-hand store." She shook her head. "Don't you run a tiny shop or something? Are you still selling old scarves and used clothes?" Serena joined the conversation while sipping her apple cider. "Yes, I remember that," she said with a little laugh. "Ellie has her cute little shop." Before I could say anything, my assistant Mia walked in from the kitchen. She was carrying a tray filled with small snacks for everyone. Cale looked at her with curiosity. "Who's she?" he asked. "My assistant," I said calmly. For a moment, the room became completely quiet. Serena blinked in surprise. "You have an assistant?" she asked slowly. Mia placed the tray on the table and then handed me my phone. "Mr. Vera," she said politely, "your legal team just confirmed the acquisition. You now own full rights to the Vera Timberland brand name." The silence in the room became even deeper. Cale's face suddenly lost its color. I calmly picked up my glass of wine and took a small sip. "Oh, right," I said softly. "I forgot to mention something." I looked around the room. "I bought the company. Happy Thanksgiving." No one spoke. I took another sip of my wine, which was a nice glass of Pinot Noir, and tried to hide the small smile forming on my face. The tea I sold was very simple. While my family had been busy promoting cousins and using the same old business ideas for years, I had been working quietly. I had been building something much bigger. Step by step. Day by day. Suddenly Serena spoke with excitement. "Wait until you hear our big news," she said loudly. She looked very proud. "Vera Timberland is expanding," she continued. "We are opening 3 new factories next year." She smiled at Uncle Gideon. "Uncle Gideon is even thinking about taking the company public one day." I almost choked on my wine. They were planning to expand their business? That was very surprising. I already knew something they didn't know. Their contractors had not been paid for 90 days. A legal claim had been filed against their main mill. Their finances were in serious trouble. "That's very ambitious," I said politely. "Of course you wouldn't understand," Uncle Gideon said proudly. He looked at me with clear disrespect. "Business strategy isn't really your area, Ellie. Running a real company takes more than selling handbags online." Laughter spread across the room. To them, I was still the same person I had been years ago. The strange cousin who left the company. Cale laughed and pointed his fork at me. Remember when Ellie told us we should start selling our products online? He said. She kept saying the market was changing. Serena laughed loudly. Yes. And remember when she wanted us to invest in that luxury resale platform? She tried to remember the name. What was it called again? Eclipse something. Eclipse Luxury Group, I said quietly. That's it, Serena said. She rolled her eyes. Good thing we didn't listen to her, Cale joked. We would probably be bankrupt by now. At that moment, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't even need to check it. I already knew what the message meant. The bankruptcy filing for Vera Timberland had just been officially released to the public. Dinner's ready, Aunt Octavia called from the kitchen. Everyone walked to the long wooden dining table. Small cards showed where each person should sit. Serena sat beside Uncle Gideon at the head of the table. I was placed much farther down the table near the fireplace. I sat between Cousin Lucan and Great Aunt Isolde, far away from the center of attention. So, Amabel, Aunt Octavia said while serving stuffing onto plates. Have you thought about finding a real job yet? She smiled in a mocking way. I heard the post office is hiring. Once again, everyone laughed. I calmly cut a piece of turkey on my plate. As they laughed, I remembered something from the past. Years ago, I had prepared a full business proposal for Vera Timberland. It included new ideas about technology, online selling, and modern supply chains. I had even based it on my MBA thesis and my 2 years of experience working in logistics. But Uncle Gideon barely looked at it. He simply folded his hands and said something I would never forget. The warehouse will be a good place for you, he told me. It will teach you humility. Now the funny part was this. That same warehouse now belonged to me. Instead of accepting their offer years ago, I had chosen to walk away from the company. I sold my small shares in Vera Timberland back to the family for a very low price. At the time, they thought it was a great deal for them. But by tomorrow morning, those shares would be worth almost nothing anyway. With the money from selling my shares, I invested in a small but promising company called Eclipse. At that time, very few people had heard of it. But today, Eclipse Luxury Group owns 30 designer boutiques and 6 very successful online shopping platforms. And just this morning, it gained its first full manufacturing company. I placed my fork down and looked around the table. Actually, I said calmly, I wanted to talk about business. My mother sighed loudly. Oh no, not this again, Amabel. Serena gave a sarcastic smile. Yes, please, she said. Tell us another great business idea. Didn't that Eclipse company you loved get bought by someone else? Yes, I said with a small nod. Serena turned proudly to Uncle Gideon. See, that's exactly what I mean, she said. Good thing we didn't follow her advice. Right then my phone buzzed again. This time I slowly took it out of my pocket and placed it on the table so everyone could see it. Everything okay? My father asked with annoyance. Is your little hobby business having problems? No, I replied calmly. I was just confirming that Vera Timberland's bankruptcy has been approved by the court. The table became completely silent. Serena's fork slipped from her hand and hit her plate with a small clinking sound. What did you just say? Uncle Gideon asked quietly. Your bankruptcy filing, I said calmly while buttering a small bread roll. Chapter 11 has been approved, but with the amount of debt you have, it will probably become Chapter 7 next quarter. That's impossible, Cale shouted. How would you even know something like that? I smiled gently. Oh, I didn't tell you yet? I slowly opened my simple handbag. It was the same handbag they had thought was cheap. Eclipse was acquired by Morgan Holdings, I said. I paused for a moment. And Morgan Holdings belongs to me. The silence in the room felt heavy. My father's face turned very pale. Serena looked like she could not believe what she was hearing. You're lying, Uncle Gideon said weakly. This must be some kind of joke. It's not a joke, I said calmly. I took out a large folder and placed it in the middle of the dining table. These are the debt purchase agreements, I explained. I now own every loan, every unpaid bill, and every financial obligation your company owes. I opened the folder and spread the documents across the table between the cranberry sauce and the gravy boat. This page is my favorite, I said softly while pointing to one paper. It shows all the money your company owes. Then I looked directly at Uncle Gideon. Morgan Holdings now owns 82% of your total debt. That can't be true, Serena whispered. You run a resale website. I could not help laughing a little. Is that really what you all think I've been doing for the last 5 years? I asked. While you were laughing at my little online shop, I was building Eclipse Luxury Group into a company worth $3.2 billion. Cale almost dropped his wine glass. $3 billion, he coughed. More or less, I said with a small shrug. It's been a good quarter. Finally my father spoke again. His voice was shaking with anger. If this is true, if you really own our company's debt, why would you do this to your own family? I slowly placed my wine glass on the table. You mean the family that told me I should feel lucky to work in a warehouse after finishing my MBA? I asked quietly. The family that laughed at every digital idea I suggested? The family that calls me a failure every holiday? No one answered me. At that moment my phone buzzed again. Excuse me, I said politely as I stood up. That is probably my assistant with the final paperwork. I walked out into the hallway. Behind the dining room door, I could hear the panic beginning. She's bluffing. Check the accounts. Call the lawyers. I smiled slightly and answered the phone. Yes, Jennifer? Everything is ready, Miss Vera, she said. The bankruptcy has been processed and the acquisition documents are complete. Should we send the team? Give them 5 minutes, I replied calmly. Let them understand what just happened first. When I walked back into the dining room, everyone was standing close together around Uncle Gideon's phone. They were reading urgent emails and court documents. Their faces were full of shock and fear. Well, I said as I calmly sat down again. Shall we talk about the next steps? My team will arrive soon with the acquisition proposals. Team, my mother repeated softly, almost whispering. Just then the doorbell rang. I looked down at my watch and smiled. Perfect timing, I said. That must be my lawyers and financial advisors. I looked around the table one more time. I hope you don't mind if they join us for dessert. My father stood up from his chair, and his face was red with anger. He looked at me like he could not believe what he was hearing. Now wait just a minute, Amabel, he said loudly. Actually no, I said calmly, stopping him before he could continue. You are bankrupt. You have not paid back 142 million cents in loans. And those loans are now controlled by me. The whole table became quiet. So you only have 2 choices, I continued slowly so everyone could understand. You can work with me so we can carefully fix the situation and sell the company in an organized way. Or I can force the company to close on Monday morning. Kara suddenly burst into tears. Her makeup started running down her cheeks. But the expansion plans, she cried. The new mills we were planning. Those plans were never going to happen, I said before she could finish. Vera Timberland has been losing money for months. The company has been in serious trouble for a long time. I looked around the table at all of them. Did any of you actually read the financial reports? I asked. Or were you too busy giving each other fancy job titles and planning cocktail parties to notice that the company was slowly bleeding money? At that exact moment the dining room door opened. Jennifer walked in with the rest of my team. Behind her were 3 lawyers and 2 financial advisors. They all wore clean navy suits and carried leather briefcases. They looked calm, confident, and professional. My family looked shocked and confused. Miss Vera, one of the lawyers said politely while giving me a small nod. Shall we begin? Of course, I said, pointing toward the dessert plates my mother had just placed on the table. Please feel free to have some pumpkin pie while we work, I added. My mother makes a wonderful pie. For the next 2 hours we carefully explained everything. We showed them the real financial situation of the company. We talked about the loans, the missed payments, and the serious risk that the company would completely fail. Then we showed them my plan. I explained the terms of my offer to buy the company. I had spent almost a full year preparing for this moment. Quietly, without telling anyone, I had been buying their debts through different small companies that I controlled. I waited patiently while they ignored the warning signs. They kept making bad business decisions again and again. This is very detailed, Uncle Gideon finally said while slowly turning the pages of the large binder filled with documents. Unlike some people, I replied with a small smile, I actually understand business strategy. By the time we finished the meeting, everyone clearly understood the tea sold. Vera Timberland was no longer truly theirs. The company now belonged to me in almost every way. Only the name still remained, and even that would soon change. I had offered them fair terms, especially considering how serious their situation was. But no one sitting at that table had any doubt anymore about one important fact. I was now the person who controlled the future of the company. As my team began packing their documents and placing them back into their briefcases, I stood up and spoke to the room again. Mo, Serena, Cale, and Lucan, I said clearly, your positions at the company are being removed. Please clean out your offices by Monday. Serena suddenly screamed in disbelief. You're firing us? She shouted. We are your family. No, I answered calmly. I am firing managers who only received their jobs because of family connections, not because they were qualified to do the work. I paused for a moment. But if it helps, I added quietly, I hear the post office is hiring. I gently smoothed the front of my simple gray dress. The dress looked plain, but that was my choice. It was a sign of control and discipline. Thank you for dinner, Mom, I said politely. The turkey was very good, even though we didn't really get to dessert. Amabel, my father said softly. His voice sounded weaker than before as I turned toward the door. Was all of this just revenge? He asked. I stopped and looked back at the dining table. Everyone looked stunned. The food was half-eaten. The large folder of documents still lay open on the table like a painful wound. No, Dad, I said calmly. This was business. I paused for one more moment before leaving. The revenge, I added quietly. That's just a bonus. Then I walked outside toward the driveway. Behind me I could hear Serena crying loudly about losing her house, her Pilates instructor, and her private club membership. Cale shouted something angry about suing me, but they had nothing left to fight with. I stepped into the black S-Class Mercedes that I had rented specially for today. As I slowly drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. I saw them all standing near the window of the farmhouse, watching me leave. Then my phone buzzed in my hand. It was a message from Jennifer. Congratulations, Miss Vera. The public announcement of the acquisition is ready for Monday morning. Her message lit up my phone screen as I merged onto the highway. Behind me the farmhouse grew smaller and smaller until it finally disappeared from view. I smiled as I imagined how different next Thanksgiving would be. Would they still call me the embarrassment of the family when I owned their company? Would they still laugh about my small online business when they were the ones sending out job applications? I doubted it very much. 1 week later the company officially changed. Vera Timberland was renamed Eclipse Manufacturing. It became the newest company in the Eclipse luxury group. I decided to keep the company's original logo. It showed the rings of a tree and had been designed many years ago by my grandfather. But I made one small change. Inside the roots of the tree I added a small eclipse symbol. It was a quiet reminder that the family's failure had covered everything like an eclipse blocking the sun. Life changed for everyone after that. Serena eventually found a job at a small department store. It was not Walmart, but it was not much better either. Cale and Lucan left Vermont completely. Their reputations were badly damaged after the company collapsed. The last news I heard about Cale was that he was working in Arizona managing store inventory. Uncle Gideon quietly retired. The company that had once been his greatest pride was now only a small note inside the legal documents of the sale. About 1 month later my father called me. He left a voicemail message. It began with the words, "I was wrong about you." And it ended with, "Would you consider bringing me in as a consultant?" I asked my assistant to send him the same polite rejection letter that we send to all the other job applicants who are not selected. That Thanksgiving I did not return to the farmhouse. I was in Milan closing another important business deal. I was too busy managing my growing business empire, including the company that had once been the center of my family's pride. But I did send them something. I sent a card to each of them. Each card had the Eclipse Manufacturing logo printed clearly on the front. Inside each card I wrote a short message. Thank you for all the lessons you taught me about real business. I hope you are enjoying your real jobs. Sometimes success is the best form of revenge. Sometimes the person everyone laughs at becomes the person everyone must answer to. And sometimes karma arrives wearing high heels and carrying a slice of pumpkin pie. If you have ever been the person people whisper about at family gatherings, the person others ignore or underestimate, the person they think will never succeed, then you understand what it feels like to hold big dreams quietly while others speak loudly about themselves. I did not fight back with shouting or arguments. I did not try to prove myself through anger. Instead, I worked quietly, step by step, slowly and patiently. And today I stand here not only in spite of their doubts, but also because of them.